Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Connor. I am Chief Customer Officer at Peloton, and I'm very excited to have you attend our very first Peloton interval training. What these are these are training sessions designed to allow our customers to get more out of their investments with Oracle. I've brought my colleague Madison today, who's one of our absolute best consultants and a world-class developer who's going to teach you about Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence today. A few items from a housekeeping perspective. Today's session is going to be about 30 minutes. We'll save some time at the end, so if you do have questions, you will be muted during the session. If you have questions, there's a little Q&A bar at the top of Zoom that you can go and enter your Q&A in, and we will go ahead and consolidate those at the end. And then also, if you feel like there's any other questions that may come up along the way that you don't want to put in Q&A or you want, feel free to send me a note directly, or Madison a note. We'll have our contact info at the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Madison.
Thank you, Matthew. So like Matthew said, my name is Madison. I have been with Peloton for the past 4 years. I've been doing nothing but Oracle reporting for almost 7 years, I think. I'm kind of a data nerd. I absolutely love reporting. So I'm going to show you guys how to go to OTBI and build a basic analysis. And at the end, hopefully I'll be able to answer all of your questions. So your screen might look a little bit different depending on what version of Oracle you have. But for the most part, everything after this screen should be pretty well the same as what I'm going to show. So to get to OTBI and to create an analysis, we're going to start up here in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to click this navigator and we're going to find tools. Again, yours might look a little bit different. There's another version where they're grouped together. Usually tools is toward the end. And within tools, you should have reports and analytics. So if you click reports and analytics, it will take you to a landing page. Yours may have results found. This is where some of your favorites and things live. What we're looking for, though, is up in the upper right corner, this Browse Catalog button. When we click that, it will take us to the BI catalog. Now, the BI catalog is split into two main areas. We have My Folders and Shared Folders. My Folders is where you will put anything that you develop for yourself. It's where you can practice things, you can do tests. No one else has access to that except for you because no one's logged in as you. No one else should be using your user. This is specific to your user. Now, the other one, Shared Folders, that is where both you can share things in shared, and then there's a custom folder. Or it's also where outside of the custom folder, everything that's out of the box for Oracle lives. So we are going to be in My Folders. To start an OTBI analysis, we're going to go to Create, and then the first button here, Analysis. It's in the blue group. When we click that, the Select Subject Area box will come up. Now, if you click outside of that, it will close it. You can't move it. You can't make it bigger. It just is what it is. Once we're here, you have a couple of options for finding what you need. You can either search for the subject area you're looking for. Subject areas are kind of like tables. They've got the data that you need. They're grouped by area. So benefits, absences, CRM. We've got receivables, payables, all kinds of stuff. You can search here. I feel like this search function is sometimes a little bit slow on my computer. So I like to hit Control F for find. And once I have that up, I like to search for what I'm looking for if I know what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to payables. Today, we're going to do payables, invoices, transactions, real time, which is this one right here. What that has is exactly what it says. It has real-time information about transactions. Once I click that, it'll load and it'll take me to this criteria screen. You can see there's a few other tabs here to go to other screens within your analysis, but this is your starting point, is this criteria screen. The criteria screen is where you select the columns and you put them in this area. You can either drag and drop or double click to get them over here. And those are the items that you're going to have available to you in your analysis. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save As. And I'm going to save this as Peloton interval training. I like to save early and often because you never know when your computer is going to unexpectedly die or something could happen in the browser crashes or anything could happen that makes you lose your work. So save early and often so that you don't lose what you're working on and you don't have to redo as much if something does happen. All right. So over here on the left side, you can see all of these folders. The way OTBI is set up is within the subject area, you have a folder system that holds all of your different items that you can put like for your criteria, your columns, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some supplier information, which is going to be in the supplier folder. I'm going to open the supplier folder and you can see there's a lot of different information available. Now we are specifically going to get the supplier number, which I'm just double clicking to add, but I can also drag and drop supplier. And then we are going to get the accounting period because we're going to get some invoice information in here. So I'm going to go to fiscal calendar. Now you can also go within the transaction information. There are things like transaction dates and whatnot, but I specifically want accounting information. And within the fiscal calendar is where you can usually on transactional data find the accounting period name, which is what we're looking for. We're also going to add some invoice information. So I'm going to go to invoice details. And I'm going to get general information. We're going to get invoice date, which is right here. The terms date, which I believe is also in this one. There it is. And the invoice number, and these are all in alphabetical order. Invoice number is right here. Invoice description, invoice type name, and then we're going to get an amount so that we have some amount data here, which is going to be an invoice amounts. We're going to pull just the full invoice amount here. Now you can also in here get invoice line information that's specific to the lines. We're going to stay at the header level. So we're going to stay in this invoice details, but we do have invoice line information if you want line level detail, invoice distribution information, and we have additional information about suppliers, the supplier site, all different kinds of stuff here. If you're looking for a field and you can't find it, you can also use the search function up here, which is really useful. You just click the little spyglass, type in what you're looking for, and it'll load whatever it finds that it thinks is relevant. So now we've got our basic information about our report that we want in here. So we've got our supplier information, accounting period, our invoice information. So we are going to save again and then go to results. Now the results screen loads initial results. So right now this is in the order that I put it in on the criteria screen. But if I were to go back and I were to add something on the criteria screen between supplier and accounting period name, and then I came back to this results screen, it would actually add it at the end. It doesn't, when you have something in a specific order on the criteria screen, it's not guaranteed to be in the same order here. However, there is a way to change the order of your columns. So we're going to go down to the bottom here in this views area, and we're going to hit table and we'll hit this pencil. You can also do that by hitting the pencil up here. And what this does is it gets us into the edit view screen. Once here, you can see you've got all of your columns and measures at the bottom, and you have your results up here at the top. This is where we can change how everything's formatted and make it a little bit prettier. The first thing I always do on this screen is I go to this XYZ button, which is the table view properties. It's kind of closer to the middle. And I change this from fixed headers to content paging and put the paging controls at the bottom. Paging controls is where it shows 30 rows initially, and from there you can see more rows, go to the next page, expand to show the maximum number of rows, which is 500. I like to have that at the bottom so that when I scroll all the way down to the end of my results, I can choose if I want to see more results, if I want to see all of the results, and do that at that point. So I'm going to keep that at bottom, and I'm going to hit OK. What that does is it makes more use of the white space on your screen. So we had plenty of room. We don't need to have scroll bars. So it makes it to where all of the data is shown across your screen instead of being trapped in that small box. This is a lot easier to look at, in my opinion. You can see everything a lot better. Now, another thing that we can do here is if you see this invoice date, we have 2 invoices, it looks like, that are from 6/23/2013, but it's not showing it on every line. Anyone who works in Excel knows that if you export this and you have all these merged rows, it's going to be a nightmare. So we are going to fix that and make it to where they're not merged. So we're going to go down to invoice date and hit the cog that's next to it. And we're going to go to this top option, column properties. When we open that, we have the column format, and we're going to change this from suppress to repeat and hit OK. And then you can see everything is going to be repeating. I'm going to do the same thing for the term state. Go up to column properties and hit repeat. OK. Everything else looks like it's staying on 1 row per line. So those should all be fine. Now, another thing we can do on this screen is we can format the data that we're seeing. So if you look at the invoice amount, we have 1 decimal, and this is a currency. Usually when we do currency, most people want to see 2 decimals at least. And if we look at this, 468,960, we probably want to add a thousands comma separator. So we're going to go to the cog again, and we are going to go to column properties. And this time we're going to go to data format. We're going to click this override default data format. We're going to treat as numbers still. We can change how we want to show negatives. So if we want to show negatives in red, if we want parentheses instead of a negative sign, we can change all of that here. We can change the number of decimal places to 2, and we can use the thousand separator. When I hit OK, it'll reformat. Looks a lot cleaner there. Right. Another thing you can do on this screen, this is like a really important screen, go ahead and hit save, is you can also exclude data. So if I decide I actually don't need a counting period name, I can put that in this excluded area here, and it'll still be available to me if I want to use it for a filter or something like that, but it won't necessarily be in my results. So if I need something for my analysis, a prompt, a filter, something of that sort, but I don't want to show it in my final table, then I can put that in this excluded and it won't show in this table. I'm going to go ahead and put that back because I do want to keep it. You can also add sections. This is something that I do want to put this, or a table prompts is where I want to put this accounting period name. What that's going to do is it allows me to prompt within this table. So instead of seeing all of that data and having to scroll until I find the data that's relevant, I can go in here and I can just choose what it is I want to see. So here's 3/23 for the accounting period, and I can see all of the invoices for these suppliers that have 3/23 as an accounting period. We can also go, and if we wanted to, we could do a section by supplier. So now each supplier has its own section. I'm going to keep this down here. I'm going to go ahead and save again and hit done. All right. So now here is our beautiful table that we've created. Another thing you might notice is this title, Peloton Interval Training. That's great for us right now today, but if this was something I actually wanted to use, maybe I wouldn't want that as the title. Automatically, what's going to happen is an analysis will take the saved name for the title. You can save it as anything you want, but if you want to rename the title on the page, if you hit this little edit view button here or on the corner where I showed you before, you can change this by unclicking the display saved name and changing this to invoices by supplier by period. You can put in whatever you want. This is also where you can format your title. So you can change your font, your color, your borders, everything there. You can add a logo, you can add a subtitle, a started time, a help URL if you have one, anything like that. You can go ahead and hit done there. There we go. Save one more time. All right, so now we have an appropriate title, we have our table prompt, and we have our table. These are the controls I was telling you about, where you can go either to the next page or show a max number, which is 500. All right, so what if I accidentally delete this and just take it off completely? It's not gone. You can see it's still over here. All you have to do is hit the button, that's the arrow, and it'll put it back on here. So you don't have to worry if you accidentally hit the X button when you were trying to hit the edit button. You haven't deleted it. It's just saved over here, and it's not going to show when you open it unless it's in this view on this layout screen. So besides tables, we can actually make a lot of different items. One of the things we can make are graphs. So if you go down here to this views area again, and you hit this button that's the plus sign with a bar graph, you can see all of the different things you can make. We can make tables, pivot tables, performance tiles, heat matrices, all kinds of things. What we're going to make today is we're going to actually make a pie graph. So I'm going to go to graph, and I'm going to go to pie. Oracle is automatically going to try to guess what you might want things to be, and it thinks we want everything to be a graph prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by making this screen a little bit bigger, and I'm going to exclude everything, and then I'll go back and make sure I add the right things where I want them. I'm just going to put everything on excluded so that I can grab what I want, because most things aren't going to be included in the pie graph. All right, give it a second to catch up to me. All right, it did guess right for this invoice amount. That is what I want for the slice size. I do want my slice to be suppliers, so it guessed a little bit right. You can see you've got your preview, just like with the other, when we were looking at the table. And we've got a pretty good graph here. We can see our invoice amount by supplier. Now, I'm going to make this match the table, and I'm going to put this accounting period name as a graph prompt. One thing I will say is, because we didn't make this prompt a prompt over the entire thing, as if you change it on the graph, you will also have to change it on the table to see the matching data. But if you add something as a prompt before you run a report, you can see it there. Also, if you do a dashboard later on, you could do a dashboard prompt. But this is an easy way. If you're just doing something for yourself, you want something simple, this is an easy way to have prompts that you don't have to reload the report every time you want to look at something. So now we can go back. We were looking at 320, I believe. And we can see for 320, here's all of our slices. Now, one of the great things about the graphs in Oracle is you can mouse over and you can see data. So we can see that Dell Inc. had an invoice amount of 551,934. We don't have to look and just say, oh, well, there's a slice and that matches with Dell, especially when we have this many slices and you've got colors that are either the same or really close to the same on here multiple times. You can also do, instead of 2D, you can change to 3D. So you can see a little bit fancy of a item there. And then you can change default. You can change the type of fill you have. So you can have gradient fills, you can have solid fills, you can have pattern fills. I'm going to just keep this at default. Now, if you get on here and you've made a graph and you're like, you know what, maybe a pie graph is not the best way to show this. Maybe a bar graph would be better. Instead of hitting done and having to create this all over again, you can actually drop down here and you can automatically just change to a bar graph. You can change it from vertical to horizontal. You can do all different kinds of things here, but you can change to different types of graphs once you're in here. So if you change your mind about the best visualization for the data that you're showing, it's super easy to go ahead and change to a different type. I like the pie graph. I like this flat view where it's from the top when we have little slices like this. So I'm going to go ahead and save and hit done. Now you can see there's no graph on here because we haven't added it to our view. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to hit this button here to move it over. Now, another thing you can do is you can, if you see where up here at the top, it turns into the little movement icon with the 4 arrows. You can put things next to each other instead of having them one after the other, especially when we have so many rows that we might have here. But this is a great way so you can see the visualization at the same time as you're seeing your table of data. I'm going to go ahead and save this one more time, and I'm going to go back to my catalog. All right. So we can see it's saved here. I'm going to go ahead and hit open on this, just so we can see it initially. So this is what it would look like when you run it with just the two items that we have on here so far. We can see all of the items here. So this is what a live view looks like. I'm going to go back to the catalog one more time. And we are going to edit this a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to go back to my criteria screen. Something that's really important with analyses is being able to add filters. So we are going to add a filter on the supplier number. So you go to this little cog and you hit filter. And on here, I'm just going to exclude supplier numbers that are null, which means they're blank. And I'm going to hit OK. And that's just going to pull out anything that doesn't actually have a supplier. Maybe it was a test invoice. Maybe the supplier got deleted. I don't know. I'm not on that side of things as much, but I know that there are some in there that are null. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, I don't want the supplier number to be null. And I'm going to save that. You can also, when you add a filter, you can use is equal to, is in, is not equal to. We've got greater than and less than and equal to. Between, null, not null, contains, is like, that's a pattern match, begins with, does not contain. There's a lot of options here. We also have this is prompted and is based on results of another analysis. Those are a little bit more advanced than we're going to go over today, but they are very useful as well. Now, lastly, the last thing I want to show you is adding a prompt to your analysis for before you run so that you can limit your data. So we don't have 2012 all the way to 2024 showing there. That's a lot of data. So I'm going to go to this prompts tab, which is the third tab at the top. I'm going to hit this plus sign and I'm going to go to column prompt. Now within here, we can see all of the columns that are in our analysis. I'm going to do accounting period name again. So when I click that, this new prompt box will pop up and we have the same options that we had for the filter for the most part. I'm going to keep is equal to is in. I'm going to keep the user input as a choice list so that a user can drop down and see all of their options. I'm going to include all column values, and I'm going to include all column values as a choice in the list. I'm also going to allow the user to select multiple values and to type values, which means just if they know exactly what they're looking for, they can type in what they want. If you require user input, that means it has to be filled out. Usually, if you require user input, you're not going to include all column values because you need the data to be limited because there's so much data that maybe it's too much for OTBI and it spins and spins and then fails. So we're going to not require user input because we know that our data is already limited. We're fine. You can also limit values by other prompts if you have multiple prompts. I'm going to put my default selection as all column values, and I'm going to hit OK. So you can see my prompt created here. Another thing you can do is if you hit this edit button, you can change where the labels are at for the prompt and where the buttons are. I like to have the labels on the side and I like the buttons on the side when I only have one prompt because it just looks like one clean line and I really like that. Now this is your drop-down choice list. So it has everything in here. You can also do a search to search all of the values. All right, I'm going to save that. Let me go back to the catalog again. We are going to run this report one more time. So I'm going to hit open. And this time we have our prompt here. Now, because I said the value is in, something I can do, if I do -20, because I know there's data there, is I could say, okay, I want to include everything from these. So all of these, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 3, and 6. So let's do the first half of 2020. I'm going to hit OK. It has all of them there. I'm going to hit OK again. Now, we still have our oh, I did something wrong. So we still have our accounting period names here, so we can actually look at any of these. I'm going to really quick, I made a mistake. I'm going to go back to this catalog. I'm going to hit edit. I'm going to go back to my criteria. I put is null instead of is not null. So I'm going to change that really quick so that we see better data. All right, go back to this catalog one more time. Let's open, let's do that one more time. Search -20. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. Have to remove this one. Sorry about that. One more time. All right. I'm going to hit OK. That looks a little bit better. So then we have within our prompts here, the things that we put in our overall prompt as well. So we can change this to 220, change this to 220, and these will match. And down here at the bottom is how you can, first of all, if you have control, you can edit from here. You can also refresh the data. So if you've changed something in the system, you need to refresh your report. That's where you refresh it. You can print. You can also export. Specifically, we have PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, and Web Archive, as well as data exports. You can add to briefing books, which briefing books are snapshots in time. Sometimes they're updatable as well, that you can share multiple report outputs at once. You can also email the content to a specific user, even if they don't have a user, even if they're not a user on the system. If you're wanting to just email output to someone who's within your company who maybe doesn't have access to the system but needs the data, you could email the results outside of Oracle. And then you can also copy the analysis here. So those are the various ways that you can share your data as well. And I think that's about everything I have to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Matthew.
Madison, thank you so much for a phenomenal presentation. I know I learned a few things on Oracle OTBI. We did have a question from the audience that I thought would be interesting for you to answer. Madison, when you're building a report, do you always take the time to write a functional specification before you do it, or do you just jump in and try and figure it out?
I think it depends on the situation. If it's a report I'm building for me on the fly, then I don't need a functional specification. But if it's a report that's for a wider audience, if it's a report that I'm building for someone else, I like to have a functional specification or at least a requirements document of some sort, because I don't want to build something and waste my time building it and have misunderstood everything that was asked. So if we have some kind of requirements document, whether that's a functional specification, sometimes it's a mock-up of the report with notes, at least something to make sure that I'm on the same page as the person asking for the report and the end users and what they're expecting.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Madison. Well, I want to thank everybody for your time today. We will share a link to this. So this is a resource. You can share this with your coworkers and colleagues who this may be of interest to. Look for more information coming soon on upcoming topics, including advanced report building, security, inquiries. So we're going to have a whole variety of things that we hope will become valuable resources for you going forward. So thank you and have a wonderful day.